God's not dead. He's surely alive. And if that's a true statement, then he's a absentee father, a deadbeat dad, missing out on the checks, coming in for the kids. He doesn't support the children anymore. When they need him most, he's not around. But he'll love bomb them and give them free parking spaces at the mall when they're driving around, one close to the door, an ideal. He'll give them an extra crouton in their salad at the Olive Garden. You know, the easy things that a dad really does in life, and not provide, help when they're sick or in the hospital or anything like that. The truth of the matter is that the God that the Christians have created isn't real. The beginning of the Bible, Genesis 1, should actually be, and in the beginning man created God, and in his image this God created all the rules to supply man with the power to rule over all the creation. And the creation would be women, minorities, everything else. As long as your pale skin reflects brightly in the sun and your pinkish hue when you stood out into it too long, then you can rule. But, what do I know? All I know is that everything seems to point to the fact that this was all created by man. All the rules, all the regulations, all the tendencies of this narcissistic being that created the best place ever to go to as long as you bow down before him. Bless him with your every word and thought. Live your life in eternal prayer and never get away from it. Always giving him supplementation. And if you don't, he'll burn you forever in a fiery furnace, torture you, and let you be rendered down to the meek little individual you are to neglect him. Sounds like he might run for office in 2028. He would be the appropriate candidate to follow what's up there now. A step back, maybe, from what we have now. But I think we'll look into this today and see what this, at least start and see where this idea of God came from that we see in the church. Because I think it was based off something real. But somewhere along the line, it took a right turn in Albuquerque. Maybe it got centered back again around Jesus' time. Then a few hundred years later, Constantine started kicking it off on another turn. And we got to where we are today, where it's a God that's beneficial to certain individuals, as long as they believe and agree with what these individuals think is right and true. But let's dive into it. Because it's not a God, baby. It's a man. On Drop the Stones.
Hi, I'm Candy.
And I'm Dan.
You're listening to Drop the Stones podcast.
A weekly podcast brought to you this week by In His Image It Was Created, the mug of champions. Looking for that spot of Joe in the morning? Well, we have a great mug for you, made by the In His Image, and In His Image is actually George, the guy that created the mugs. They're all made in his image. Mug face George, as we used to call him back in high school. He took that and he made it into something beautiful. A bunch of mugs with his big old mug on it. It's a mug with your mug on it. In his image. Mugs.
I mean, that could be the name of a brand, In His Image. I could see a Christian coming out with it. In His Image mug.
Yeah, it could be.
It's only mugs that they sell at this place?
That's all he's got right now.
Oh. Who's he?
George. Oh. Old mug face George.
Oh, yeah, mug face George. I forgot about that. I forgot about him. You told me about him 10 seconds ago.
Yeah. What's up with the mug, George? You'd be like, what are you talking about? We're like, what we're talking about, George.
George, come on. Look at that mug.
So, yeah, Annie Hizzle. Welcome back, folks, to another
riveting episode of Drop the Stones.
But let's get into our spiritual journey here, because I think one thing we recognized, and we'll see what tangents we go on with this, is that our idea of God in our deconstruction was completely askew in the Christian faith. And the more we reflect back on that God we believed in, the more we see that it was an image created in man.
Man's image. It's a God created in man's image.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a God created to
agree.
benefit, and it basically was this thing created so, one, it would give man an excuse to do whatever
Vile
he wanted.
things.
Yeah, whatever he wanted, and say, well, my God made me do it, so
or God said, so I'm doing this.
I'm blessed in doing it. So
it's a very effective way of manipulating lots of people very easily. Not just
people, but oneself and everyone around them.
Yeah, that's true. It does manipulate yourself too. Yeah.
Because and we see it all the time. We kind of touched on it on a Pebble that came out a couple weeks ago, where, you have the hypocrisy of the faith and you can justify whatever. So if a child is essayed in a church by a pastor, there's a decent chance that pastor will be lifted up in a prayer circle later.
I've seen that, yeah.
And the child will be ostracized on, what did you do to cause this? How are you behaving? You 8-year-old little minx. What were you doing?
What were you wearing?
Yeah.
Why were you sitting that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some we can go on to later too about dress codes that we have for children and why are we basically sexualizing babies? Why do babies have to wear bikini tops?
I saw a TikTok, I think it was today, where a woman was upset because she's an ex-Mormon, and now I guess in the Mormon churches, they're allowing women to wear off the shoulder shirts now.
Oh my Lord.
And she was bawling because she's like, I'm glad that you guys get that, but we've been told for so long, like, why do you have trauma? So you couldn't wear those shirts, it was no big deal. But they're traumatized because she said when she was 5, her mom sat her down. She's like, this is nothing against my mom. My mom thought she was doing what was right because she loved us. But she sat me down at 5 and said, I want you to agree with your mouth. Like, you have to agree that you will not show your shoulders anymore. Like, what do you think that says to a 5-year-old? All of a sudden, a 5-year-old starts looking at their shoulders like something's wrong with them, like they're bad.
And I know the meaning behind it. It's to train them up young so that they understand at a young age. So it's second nature when you get into
you got to get them while they're young.
Because there's no reason for a 5-year-old to even think about this.
No.
Because what 5-year-old boy is sitting around going, ooh, look at the shoulders on that.
None. It's not the 5-year-old boys. It's the 50-year-old men.
I'm trying to stay away from that right now. But you know what I mean? So they're trying to say, don't be a stumbling block for the men out there because they can't be held responsible for anything they do.
Which doesn't even come from the Bible. The Bible, young men were told to have self-control. That was the thing that Paul, I think it was Paul, basically said to Timothy or Titus, tell the young men to have self-control.
Well,
he didn't say, he said tell the young women to basically not be like going about like.
That book shouldn't be in the Bible.
I can't remember what he said to young women. It was like, young women, don't be busybodies, basically going from do your stuff at home. I think it was basically stop just going around and jibber jabbering all day, which I don't know. That's the rules, but they kind of enforce that for women. They kind of stay home, take care of the house, but they do not go on with the other part. It says young men, it was specifically young men because they're the ones that struggle with it.
Yeah.
If you teach them that they have self-control, but now we have old men who have no self-control.
And I think
if you would have taught them when they were young, you wouldn't have the problem when they're older.
I'm putting on my Christian hat right now. I'm wondering if there was lessons taught that the self-control would have been more aimed at anger and physical altercations with other men.
Well, then why is what he says to the woman applying to her role as a woman?
But I think that's the way they would probably teach it. As, okay, it's not, come to fisticuffs with everyone.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it includes that.
It does, but that's probably what they focused on because they don't want to be held responsible for their actions in the
It's just a general statement, though. Why can't we take it really general? Because I think men in general need to learn self-control, but I think young men, if you teach them when they're young, they won't need to be taught that when they're old.
Yeah.
They will have self-control.
But
you
then you go and look at what Dobson and all them do. It's like, boys will be boys, let them be boys.
I know. There's let them, boys will be boys. You don't have any of those kind of phrases for girls. Girls will be girls. No. It was like, we'll tell you this is what a girl is, and this is what a girl does.
Yeah. Girls be tripping.
Or all the negative things like that.
Girls be tripping, y'all.
Or like, I don't even want to. Just anyways, go on.
So anyways, I'm sorry, took us on a tangent right away off that one, but this God thing. So we had this idea of God, this all-loving Father. And if he was a father, he would be, like I said in the beginning there, a deadbeat, absentee, just not around doing the fatherly things, not helping. I mean, you think about what the ideal dad would be in a life. Ideal. And does God fit that image as he's being taught?
I remember being in a Bible study one time and someone asked me my image of God. Mm-hmm. Like what I thought of when I thought of like Father God, we had Jesus, Holy Spirit, and Father God. And I said unapproachable. And because that's how I felt. I felt like he's this scary thing that I don't know if I'm going to be good enough to pass, just constantly afraid.
Well, keep going.
And then there was a guy in that Bible study with us. He said, I feel like he's like light and unapproachable light. And he said, I feel like he's light, but not unapproachable. He went right after me and said that. And I was like, well, that's interesting that you feel like he's unapproachable and you're a male, you're a white male. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he's unapproachable. And yeah, I'm white, but I'm female.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I think it would be an interesting question to ask people of color and all, like disabled people.
Yeah.
Like how they would view God.
Yeah. Because I think there's an interesting thing there that I don't know how you'd actually look into and find it. But you come from Generation X, right?
Well, yeah, we're on the end, kind of on the end of it.
Oh, we Gen X.
Yeah.
Gen X for life, baby.
I do relate to millennials too.
Boom, right there. But
kind of, both.
I wonder if the church realized what they were doing. They had been so effective in teaching the depravity of man, the sinful nature, you're not going, because that's basically what we were getting a lot in our messages was, you don't deserve this. You're horrific. You're awful. You're a piece of trash. You don't deserve any of this. But luckily, God has enough love in his heart to accept a turd like you into his kingdom.
That's not the message. At least that's not the message I got. It's luckily Jesus loved you, even though you don't deserve his love. He's taken his place, and God will look at Jesus, see Jesus, not you. You have to be hidden.
Yeah, but it was basically you beat up on yourself. So
you are not even worthy to be in God's presence.
That's where your unapproachable mindset came from, because you realize this is me. And
I know I can't ever reach the standards that he's asking.
Yeah, I can't get there. So I wonder if the church did a 180 here for the millennials and all the ones below and started doing the Veggie Tales.
So they got a different image of God.
Teaching this more loving
But see, then that image is shifting and changing. Yeah, then that backfired on this. Now they want them to think of a God that's unapproachable again.
Yeah, because when you started teaching this loving and accepting and, all children of the rainbow are part of God's family and we love it. And then these millennials are like, okay, that's what we were taught. That's what we believe. The church isn't doing that. You guys that are our age that were told that we're pieces of crap and don't deserve anything and strict rules and all this. They're like, well, your rules don't adhere to what Jesus actually taught.
That's interesting. I'm wondering if teaching the kids, like I would have the kids watch Veggie Tales and stuff. I'm wondering if teaching them changed my view of God, because I definitely thought of Jesus as approachable.
Yeah.
I liked Jesus. I really liked the idea of Jesus. I liked feeling loved. I liked feeling loved just as who I am. But Father God was scary.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think there's also some personal stuff there too for you.
yeah, maybe that's true. That's true. That probably played into it. But I don't know.
Because there's a lot of personal things for you where your dad wasn't the most approachable either.
I associated him that's true. I associate him very much with my father. So when you would think about the father, how did you view him? Approachable?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. But like, were you able to like really be yourself and let down your guard and just show?
No, it's probably more like I treat with my family now.
So like your dad. So it's almost like you looked at the father like you look at your father.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that that's why my dad is the way he is, because his dad was the way he was with him.
Yeah, it could very well be. Maybe we're cracking.
And my mom has a really good love, a really like healthy kind of love for God. She thinks she's loved unconditionally because her even though it was her adoptive father, she adored her adoptive father.
But I mean, even this speaks to the point. We're creating this image of God based on our relations with our parents, because we're told God's this fatherly image. So what's fatherly image? It's what we see in our house from our father.
And so everybody's going to have this different view.
Yeah. So
and what a father can have a different relationship with each child. And so each child would have a different view.
Yep.
So look at the view of God is painted in the image of man. All right?
I thought I was going to sneeze.
That was weird because it was like a yawn sneeze.
It was
a yeeze.
Yeezys.
You called it a what?
Yeah, a snoz.
A snoz?
Yeah.
What? That's a gross word. I don't know why.
I'm going to snoz.
I got to snoz in just a second.
Hold on, I'm going to go snoz for a minute. Don't worry about it. So, but yeah, I think, that just kind of proves it, that we're creating this image.
Yeah.
Of what it's not about the doctrine and everything else. We're creating and forming this image of what God is in our own, from just basically our perceptions of the world around us. What our fathers was. Maybe some people are basing it on what they see on TV. That's what
I was going to say, because some people don't have, let's say you don't have a father or something, you might base it on
I remember there was always this argument, and you'd hear the debates in the church of, well, I see God as a woman, and then all the traditionalists in the church would be, no, it can't be, he's a man. It's like, well, no, he's genderless. It's essence, it's a spirit. But whatever, go ahead and throw a dick on him. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's really what they're doing.
But they created it as a woman because they had a horrible relationship with men in their life.
Yeah, true.
So they wanted to have a favorable opinion of God. So consciously, they switched that over to, I'm going to make this more, maybe a woman. My mother was more approachable and more. So if I have that affiliation with God, then he's more approachable. But if I do it with this male figure that was in my life that beat me and abused me and did all this, I'm not going to have a positive outlook on what God is.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because some of these guys insist too that you refer to God as he, not knowing how the language gets translated, because the same word that's translated for he could be translated she, it could be translated it. It's just a singular, I think it's a singular pronoun, personal pronoun or something, third person singular pronoun or something. And it could be any one of those depending on the, context, whatever. And they just chose he to refer to God. And so now these people insisting.
Well, because that's the English way of doing things without.
If you didn't know, that was what we were taught in grammar. If you didn't know, you said he. And so, that's true. It's just and it's an English rule that, but people insist the Bible says he's a he. And it's like, no, it really doesn't. It actually says God is not a man.
Yeah.
That's a verse.
But Adam was created in his image.
But so was Eve. Adam and Eve. And what's interesting about that? Well, that might be something I might not say on the podcast. I don't know. Just about Adam and Eve. He says male and female, he created them. Why doesn't he say he created him male and he created her female? He said he created them male and female. which makes me think he created these beings as male and female altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it, kind of? Because he doesn't say that
Yeah.
about anything else. He doesn't say that about the beasts of the field. He didn't say he created male and female, but he did do that.
Yeah.
But do they have this masculine and feminine energy in them? I don't know. 'Cause I just thought it was kind of interesting. It's an interesting little observation. But anyways, back to what we're talking about. God being made in man's image.
Back to our original programming. So we have a little point there on this is one way it's done. But you look at just this history of in our deconstruction and figuring out what God really was. Okay. So we're reconstructing this and trying to figure it out and see what this deity really was. Because this deity that we had in Christendom wasn't a great guy. It was this bipolar, at best, deity.
Mhm.
You know, you had the Old Testament God that was extremely violent and vengeful, wiping out, whole races of people and destroying just different cultures
killing
and everything.
children and also taking women as their own, like their property, killing children who don't obey their parents. Just terrible. Sounds like a terrible God.
And then all of a sudden it switches here in the New Testament.
Yeah, but God doesn't change.
Yeah.
Okay.
To this other God that's supposed to be, look at, and this is what he did. But I mean, it's almost.
I mean,
it's almost Trumpian on how he created this whole process. He created this tangent I'm going on. He created this whole world and made it so man would fail and not be able to be with him forever. But then he decided that he was going to recreate himself as a man to live in the earth, to then
he made the rule. He made the rule that there had to be shedding of blood for the forgiveness of sins.
So he sacrificed himself.
Mm-hmm. So he set it up so man would sin. He created the reward system he was going to give, and he became the reward system so he could be idolized and worshipped forever.
Yeah. Yeah, he created it so he sacrificed himself to himself so that he himself.
Yeah, it's such a narcissistic system. That's not really what I don't think the Bible is teaching at all, but that is the message that people have concluded. That is the message of Christianity that we were a part of.
Maybe that's why all these MAGAs love Trump, because
they do this. You can see how they're using the Bible to actually. You can use the Bible to back up the behavior that worshiping this guy.
Yeah.
You're not worshiping, but adoring him.
Yeah.
You can use the Bible, and this is why the Bible itself
it's almost like the personification.
It is, actually. And so, of course, here's the thing, like I've noticed, I've said this before on social media, on Facebook one time. I said, it's almost like there's two Jesus. And someone said, what are you talking about? This is a person that's right-wing, was pro-Trump. What are you talking about? There's two Jesuses. And I was like, it just seems like there's this Jesus of Nazareth that I read about, and then there's this different Jesus. And I think this different Jesus is an American white, gun-loving, God, guns, babies kind of being, right?
Yeah.
And he's completely an idol. He's something else. He is not Jesus of the Bible. And it's weird because I thought my parents taught me the Jesus of Nazareth, but I don't think I really noticed the Jesus of Nazareth until I started actually reading the Bible by myself as a 20-some-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's very different than the Jesus my parents believe in, it seems like.
And I don't know, maybe it was in the 80s with Falwell and all them, where it kind of switched, where this political alignment with Christendom that in effect started switching this Jesus to being a Jesus of power and authority.
Yes.
Of having to have control, and that was a big aspect. And that's the church we were in, because I know you've said it many times before that if this God is so powerful and so all omnipotent and everything else, then why are you trying to enact laws in this country?
Mm-hmm. Like, you don't need to legislate your God's, if he's so powerful and he's so insistent that everybody obey him, because then he won't, if he cares about it that much, let him step in and do it.
Yeah.
Like, and if he doesn't, then maybe he's not all powerful.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You don't think he's all powerful. You probably don't even really think he exists. That's why you legislate it. Because you know that you are God in your own head.
Yeah.
And when we say to people, like, when I say to somebody, like, you're a part of God, what they hear is, I'm saying, like, they are God. You are not God, but you are a part. You are a piece of God. You are a God particle. You are a cell in the body of God, whatever that looks like. You know, you are a piece of something because we're all pieces of it. That's all that really exists. And when I say that, they think you're saying, they will accuse people like us who leave Christianity of making a God in our own image, that we are God. And it is the opposite. They are the ones, I hate to say us and them, but Christianity that we came out of, evangelical Christianity, created an image of God and told you to worship it.
Yeah.
And so that's a God that it's an idol that has been made. It's been shaped. And here, this is what God looks like for you. And instead, when we say to somebody, you are a piece of God, all of a sudden, God doesn't have a shape anymore. That shape disappears. The defined lines disappear. If I say I'm a part of God and you're a part of God, God now becomes bigger, more complex in some way. Also, the lines fade to define what God is or who God is. You can't really define God.
Yeah.
In Christianity, God is so tiny. He's just in this little box.
Yeah.
You know, he has to follow these rules.
Yeah.
And I remember people saying, like, God will not tell you anything that goes against his word, which is they're talking about the Bible. But his word it's the promise that you are one, even as we are one. Like, you're one. You are not separate from God. You are in the image of God, not the image like a reflection in a mirror that's separate, not you. But the reflection is you. When you're looking in the mirror, it is you you're looking at. You are looking at you're looking at yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, I'm losing kind of my train of thought there.
Oh, you're on a roll there.
I was on a roll. Couldn't you refresh me a little bit?
Come on, butter. You're on a roll.
So you're made in the image. Yes. So when you forget that, or when you don't believe that, that's the sin. When you don't believe that you are in the likeness of God. That's really what it says. You're in the likeness of God. It was like your children are a piece of you. They come from your DNA, right? My DNA, your DNA made our children. Nobody else's DNA, except for who was in us, is mixed into them, right? They didn't have any random person. It's just two. And that's the thing with the divine and the physical. It's those two together. It's the earth and the heavens basically making this offspring. And that's you. You are made in that likeness. And when we say that, I mean, it's just beautiful because it doesn't exclude anybody and it includes everything. Yeah. And it goes with the verse, in him we live and move and have our being, because we really do. There's nothing else that exists. Yeah. But in a Christian's view, the God is he's in a box. Very tiny. And I remember thinking God got bigger all of a sudden when we started to deconstruct. I was like, God's bigger. And someone said to me, I think it was one of my sisters said that your God is, when I said that he's already returned, well, your God is in a box. And I was like, because it has to be that he has already come again. And I'm like, that changes when you understand that we're not waiting for Jesus to return. It changes a whole lot of things, because then you're like, okay, why are we still here? What is going on? Why is there evil? You start asking real questions. What are these things then? And what they tend to do is, oh, it can't be true because I need this to be true, this to be this, I need that box. I need to check the boxes, right? So I can't believe that. So how can God speak to anybody who is in that system if they're not willing to look outside that system? They cannot hear him. They cannot hear God at all, because he has to talk through a certain channel or they will not listen. So God is speaking all the time. And people don't hear because it's got to be in that box. Yeah. It's got to come from that box or that book, if you will.
And that's even part of what we're always taught, is when someone had a revelation or heard from God, well, what do we have to do? We have to check it against scriptures to make sure it holds up.
Everything was like,
Yeah.
you have to check the Bible verses to see if it matches.
Shit, we were even told in one of the churches that God doesn't speak to us anymore.
Oh yeah.
So we have everything he ever needed to say in the Bible.
I remember we fell for that. I remember struggling with that one. That's when God began to feel unapproachable, I think, for me, is when we went in, because we were in our 20s, mid-20s. We had children when we went.
We're probably pretty close to 30.
No, I don't think so. I think we were maybe mid-20s, okay. But still young.
Yeah.
You know, that changed. I struggled with God my whole coming up years, but I also God became more important to me. Like he was pretty important throughout. I have pockets of time where he was pretty important, but I was also, as a teenager and I didn't think about God that much. And I did, but I didn't, I was just, I wanted to please God, but I wasn't like I don't know. I tried to witness to a girl when I was in second grade or something. That's pretty. And I went with a friend to church. We started going when I was in second grade. So I don't know, maybe more so than I think, but it's when we went there, when they said God doesn't speak to us personally anymore, I struggled with that because I was just like, and then it was, he'll talk to you or communicate through the Bible to you before you get married, like to a single woman. But once you get married, all of a sudden, this really bothered me. Now he can only talk through your husband.
Yeah. That
really bugged me because I was like, okay, so now God doesn't want to talk to me even less. He's got to go through my husband. So if my husband doesn't agree with it, it's not God. And I was like, this is just, I was struggling with those kinds of thoughts. I wonder if that's a relatable thought that anybody really had, but I would definitely have that.
I'm sure there's people out there that had that and felt that too.
Maybe.
Because that's just the nature of what was being taught. Women were always second-class citizens in the church. You weren't supposed to sit down, shut up, and listen. Mm-hmm. That's what Paul said, so obey it. Yeah. Don't approach the teachers. Don't approach anything else.
Go ask your husband when you're at home in quiet, ask your husband. And I would do that sometimes, but you didn't know a lot of the stuff. And so then I felt like I don't have a good spiritual leader, so I felt like I didn't marry very well.
Yeah. Throw me under the bus. Why don't you?
I did. I think in a way there was a lot of times, if I'm going to be really, really honest, that I had to I struggled to feel like you were human. Godly enough. You know what I'm saying? I had to force myself to be like.
And I know where you're coming from on that because I didn't fit the stereotypical role.
No, you didn't.
What a Christian husband should be.
Yeah.
And it was because I was in a box I wasn't meant to be in.
Yeah, it wasn't a good fit because every time you did try to do it, I didn't like it. I didn't like that guy.
Yeah.
But that was fucked up kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They messed with our marriage so that it's actually almost a miracle that we continued to. We must have really loved each other, but I mean, because that would have been easy to just be like,
deuces.
Yeah. But in a way I was kind of trapped. I remember thinking I'm kind of trapped. I cannot financially stop saying that. No.
Locked.
Always
down.
Free to walk away if we choose to.
Lockdown.
That's a show, Dan. And people in jail.
Yeah, you're in prison. You're in my prison. Prison of live.
That's not funny. No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. It's not. Some people. But yeah, so I mean, you had all this imagery coming through that we were deconstructing through and moving through because we had this just toxic view of what God is. And it's gotten, I think, even worse recently, where it's gone to this toxic masculinity type view of what God, because it's God loves guns and God hates brown-skinned people in America. And America, it's in the Bible, and it's God's country. And this, we got to represent it all around here. Bang, bang, pew, pew.
Like, who really likes, is there anybody who absolutely loves, I don't know any woman who absolutely loves the ideal image that they put forward as a masculine man. He doesn't show emotions except for anger.
Mm.
He's a dick, kind of. He's bossy. He acts like he's the king. He thinks he's above his wife and his children. He's the boss of the whole family.
Yep.
He just doesn't seem like he brings in money.
Oh yeah.
He brings in money and then he barks orders. He's not this soft, gentle. Now they painted that picture sometimes, but a woman, and then you got toxic femininity, where it's so passive. This little voice, like that Duggar voice that's just
that's
not real. It sounds like a child.
Soft-spoken.
Yeah, soft spoken. So they do that, and that's toxic femininity too. So and what guy really wants a woman? I mean, honestly, if a woman is this all the time, I am so, okay, never ever stands up to him like an equal and actually shares the load in responsibility for the decisions, right? Mm-hmm. Takes half and half of that, helps with, sometimes can feel strong because he's human, and sometimes he feels weak, and sometimes he feels tired, and that she can help him. She can encourage him when he's down, right?
Yeah.
You want a woman like that.
Yeah.
I would assume. Who's attracted to, but that's not the toxic femininity that we're taught. Like, you don't pick up a man when he's down because he's never should be down. And if she's doing that, that's kind of a masculine move, right? Mm-hmm. To comfort him. It's kind of masculine.
Yeah.
So nobody really wants those. Nobody really wants those strict, toxic. We don't really want it, but they're constantly somehow this system is pushing out, these are the ideals, but they're not. Nobody wants those ideals, really.
Yeah.
We pretend like we do, but it's kind of like your post where you were talking about the girls, when you were a kid, and they had, you guys, who's the cutest girl in the school, and you just agreed, even though that wasn't the one you thought was the cutest. It was just kind of like, yeah, sure, that's what we think is masculine, but they wouldn't like their husband to be like that.
No, yeah, definitely.
And the men wouldn't want their wives to really be like that.
Yeah, because you had the pastor that was like, not everyone can have a hot wife like Donald Trump.
Like Melania Trump.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's not the wife. Oh, to Elon?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, okay, he says that about while his wife is sitting right there.
Yeah.
And first of all, that is, I don't know how women stay with men. Like, I would just be like, I am done. That is just, it's rude.
Yeah.
It's going to make her so self-conscious, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's idolizing this image, because anybody who's paying attention can tell that Melania and Trump do not have a good relationship. They do not have a happy, healthy marriage. And anybody who thinks that they do is delusional.
Yeah.
They don't. She's not attracted to him. He might be I don't think he's attracted to her either anymore. Honestly, I think they know each other well enough that they don't like each other.
He sprayed his Cheeto dust around to enough ladies.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
Probably looks like a Cheeto.
Oh, God, I don't want to think about it right now. It's all gnarled.
All gnarled, bumpy, dusty.
We're going to get taken down. We're talking about Trump's
Cheeto. Old Cheeto dick.
Stop. Okay, let's know more. Okay. Anyways, but yeah, it's now I can't. Now I got a gnarled Cheeto in my head, and I'm trying not to attach it to
to a Big Mac.
Ew, gross.
Little Cheetos sticking out of it.
Stop. Stop. Do not put this on TikTok, Dan. Nuh-uh. They scan your words there. Don't.
It's going to be a little Cheeto sticking out of a diaper.
Oh, God. White. That is a terrible image.
She'll
That's a terrible image. Please stop.
She'll recover.
No more. You know, I'm a visual kind of, I
know.
imagine things very clearly. Don't do it. Anyways, so yeah, him saying that about Melania and acting like she has a certain physical look that there's no denying is attractive, but that doesn't mean, first of all, it doesn't mean she's an attractive person to be up close to. I don't know. I don't really know her, very much, but it's this superficial image that these guys are after. And then when they're married to him, a lot of these guys who are with conservative women, really strict conservative women, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bet you, this is just my guess, they have affairs or fantasies of being with more liberal women. That is my...
No, because they all look like thumbs.
I do not think that's true. I honestly think that there are more, I don't want to say that. There's attractive women on both sides, but I think liberal women, there's more variety. You have more choices.
Yeah.
Because they don't all look the same because
they're not cookie cutter.
And I guess I shouldn't say non-conservative women. Yeah. Conservative women have a very specific look. In the church that we were in, I had a specific look. I didn't really like my look.
Yeah.
In church. I remember, though, I would wear things at first when we were going to church. It was a little more like tight fitting. I remember wearing this shirt. It was, that was when I would go to church sometimes with my dad and my sister, and you didn't go. You were working all the time. And I would take Lainey. My boobs were huge because I was nursing. And it was more form fitting for sure. I was dressing more like that. And then I think when we started going to that more legalistic church is when I changed in my clothing.
Yeah.
And I did not like the look. When I look back at some of those pictures, I'm like, what in the hell are you wearing?
I think that's a key thing to this whole thing about God too. It's all about image. So in the Christian church today, they're trying to protect this image of God.
Yes.
Which means that it's created by something.
Yeah, you have to protect it. Otherwise, it should just be itself, and you don't have to. It just is what it is. Yeah.
And it talks to the narcissistic nature of everything too, because a narcissist is always going to tell you what the image is and what it's got to look like, and you hear it all the time. I'm the greatest.
Doesn't let you form your own interpretation of the image.
I know the best words. I know all the generals. I know more than all. That type of idea. So then
I'm the most honest.
Got this God that's got to keep having this image built up of, oh, he's all this, and a lot of it's almost like when you're little and my daddy can kick your daddy's ass because my daddy's so much bigger, and that's what these Christians are doing with their God of, well, my God's so big and strong and powerful, he'll take you and burn you in hell forever because that's what you deserve, and he's going to lift me up, and your daddy can't do anything like that. So
no, and it's no different than the ancient gods of Egypt or the ancient gods of Rome and Greece. They thought they were the god of gods.
Yeah.
And they were better than all the other gods, and the other gods really were nothing compared to them.
Yeah.
It's like you'll hear
the whole Old Testament. It's all these stories about how your God will fall, and oh no, this statue of your God fell over on its face, and because our God's stronger, or I poured water all over my wood and I lit it on fire. My God lit it on fire, and we gave you gasoline, coal,
and your still wouldn't light,
and your shit wouldn't light.
Yeah,
but mine.
But then they will say, like, if you ask a Christian today, if you asked an evangelical today, they would be like, those gods didn't exist. But then you could say, well, then why does the Bible say he is the God above all gods or something like that? It's almost implying that there's other gods. Elohim in the very beginning, that, in the beginning, God, it's Elohim, however you say it. And that's plural gods, so, and then you get to Yahweh, which is I am that I am, or whatever. And that's different. That might be a specific one, which I think is all that is, but that's a digression from.
I mean, so that's kind of what we found to be the case in Christianity, especially when we left and were able to look at it from the outside in and see this is what we were seeing. This is all created. And when you look at it from that perspective and see and hold it up and see the church and how they act, that's how they describe their God, because it's something there to justify what they want to do. We want to punish these people.
We don't
We're
like
going to justify
these people.
with our God. And we're going to use our book to translate it in such a way to create this God, to deem it necessary for us to act this way, And
it's the confirmation bias that you're looking for when you read the Bible too. It needs to back up what you believe already, right? Yeah. How often do you go to the Bible and you're like, that's what happened to me. I went to the Bible and saw it completely different, and it went against what I already thought. Yeah. And I was like, what? That is weird, and I don't know how I feel about it. But if you're not going to the Bible and going, oh my goodness, like that really goes against what I've thought.
Yeah.
But people think that that's how we go approach it with, like, we want to do all these sins. And then you go like, I want to sleep with my man before I get married. And then they go to the Bible and they go, oh, I can't because look at what it says here. But the Bible really doesn't say that. No. You would have to have that thought already. It does say like, don't defile the marriage bed, but that could be like sleeping with something outside of the commitment that you've made to your person or whatever. But it also, you have guys with several wives, you have kings with concubines, you have prostitutes, you have all sorts of different type of sexual interactions going on in the Bible. And then, you have a husband and one wife, but it's not really talking about sex in that. It's just, one husband and one wife. Yeah. But I mean, there's just so many things that you'd have to imply and push that in there. That's not where you're going to get shocked. I think you're going to get shocked when you realize what you've been taught was true about God. And you'll go, wait a second, that's not really what it's saying. But most people won't do that. They will look at it through that one singular lens that someone told them, this is how you view him. And then they will, in the lazy evangelical way, not just evangelicals, but that lazy way of thinking, okay.
Yeah. Because, you're told by an authority. You're trained up that way your whole life to accept what authority says. So you're going to believe it. So we kind of deconstructed this God that we had seen before and had to redefine, one, is there something out there? And what is it? And a lot of people, and, more power to them, say there's nothing out there. And I can understand why they would say that.
Yeah, I can understand that too.
They want tangible proof, something they can lay their hands on or see or whatever.
Or hold in their hands, or they want to actually have a vision or something that, not even a vision, because a vision, they'll say they could explain away, which you could.
Makes perfect sense because
it's logical and reasonable. Yeah.
Because if this all-powerful God really wanted everyone and everyone was his creation, he would have done anything possible to prove that to everyone.
That's how, just kind of like gravity. He makes gravity very apparent, right? Yeah. Why can't he make heaven and hell that apparent? Yeah. But some Christians will say he has. And I'm like, absolutely, he has not made it that apparent to anybody. Yeah. But
that's the confirmation bias too. It's because, well, he made it apparent to me. Well, he made it apparent to you because you always believe this way.
Yeah, you're just confirming you choose to believe it. Yeah, you're choosing to believe it. And I don't want to. I think for me, for my beliefs, I don't want to choose to believe something. I want to hold off belief in something until I'm convinced that it's true.
And that's why you got people that their belief and all their proof is, well, I was driving around the mall and I had a sore ankle and I didn't want to walk. And the spot right in front of the door of the store I needed to go into opened up right when I was there. God is real.
Mm-hmm. Whereas that's fine. Like I would probably be really appreciative of, hey, like I really like a good spot. And I would be talking to my higher self now, right? I would be like, and then I would be super grateful, right? And I would feel like that was just I got myself in the right energy and space and the universe opened up for me. Yeah. I could take it that way. But here's the thing with that is that doesn't make me go, God is real. Like, then I would have to be like, whose idea of God? That's what's the problem is. You can say God is real. You can go, I believe there's a God or something higher or bigger or, spiritual. But to say the Christian God is real because that parking spot opened up is That's not reasonable.
Yeah, you're just confirming your own beliefs.
That doesn't, you could say that maybe there's something to it, maybe there's not, but to say that it is the Christian God that did that.
Yeah.
You can't know that.
You want to justify what you believe in. So you're going to look for whatever you possibly can that happens in your life and put that and attribute it to God blessing you in your life. So that's,
and then you start worshiping and serving that God.
Yeah.
Because you think that God's real. Now you're trapped to that God's system.
Yeah.
And that God's system is interpreted by men in charge that tell you how it's.
Need to be right and correct all the time is going to keep confirming all these examples that come up in your life.
I mean, confirmation bias will kick on.
Yeah. So this is our God because he's doing all this stuff for me.
But you're choosing in that moment that the parking spot is open. You've chosen to believe exactly what God is true, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When instead you could just be like, maybe that was a divine thing. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. You stay curious, right? Yeah. And then you test it out on other things and you say, maybe, but to come to the conclusion that it's got to be this God, because there's books about all sorts of different gods.
Yeah.
And, but Christians, how they snag people or not snag so much, because I don't know if this would work for someone who's outside of Christianity and bringing them in, how they keep somebody in who was born and raised in it is they say, that Jesus, what was I going to say?
I don't know.
Oh, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. Yeah. And no man comes to the Father but by me. That verse alone will ring you back in so that you will think this is the only God. Yeah. You can't think of any other God. So when you say in God we trust on our money, you can think of any God you want. Yes, I trust in the higher spirit. I trust in my higher self. And that's who I would define as God. But Christians want their view of God to be the only view that people can hold. Right?
Yes.
They want this Christian God, but a Muslim person should be like Allah. But remember when we were in Christianity, they were like, some people would say Allah is the same as the God of the Old Testament. That's the same God, the Father. And Christians would be like, absolutely not. No, they're not the same. But they are. Allah is their word for God.
God, yeah. Yeah.
It's just insane how much is in the image of someone created this being. And we think that is it should give us courage, I guess, in a way, when we realize that cannot be true.
Yeah.
To follow our hearts in understanding that God is bigger than that, right?
Yeah.
If there's a God, it's bigger than the Christian God.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And has to be better.
Yeah.
Because that God is real douchey, right?
Yeah, he is.
Or we don't want him, right? It's got to be better than that Christian God or I don't want him.
The God is the meme that's Jesus sitting there next to a kid starving in Asia or Africa. And he says, sorry, kid, can't help you. Someone needs a parking spot at a mall in Toledo.
Because they're going to go shopping for a new suit. Yeah. So, that's true. And then, it's kind of like Santa Claus.
But then it brings it back to, because the old teaching was, well, why does that happen? And it's like, well, because of man's sin.
Yeah. So that little boy who's starving, his sin was greater than that man who was going to buy a suit.
Yeah.
The little boy who hasn't really experienced much life at all and probably doesn't know the difference between a right and a left hand.
The answer I always got was, well, we live in a sinful world.
Yes, because that's those trite little answers that you get that are just like, that is so, first of all, you're insulting my intelligence. Because I can think through this and that answer does not satisfy my curiosity whatsoever. Mm-hmm. These are the types of questions that would drive me absolutely nuts because they would answer like that. And they all had that same answer. No matter where you went, you'd get that same answer. And it's like, that is not satisfying it. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. You're not giving me a good, solid answer to this question that I have. And that's
because they couldn't.
I guess that's what pushes people. It's not bad that they can't because it does push people to get out.
Yeah. Well,
if they keep thinking.
When you create this and you have this thing that you've actually created, man's created and it's been passed on for generations now.
And he morphs and changes. It's not the same Jesus now that was in 1800s in America. No. This is a new type of Jesus.
It's going to be it's going to be difficult to make that hold up to proof in the light of day because it's created by someone. You know, it's like watching a movie and pointing out, well, the physics won't act right in that Star Wars movie because that's just not how physics of the world operates. And it's like, okay, that's because man created this storyline, this world. And that's all Christians have been doing for years is just world building, this Christian God and this faith and this everything they have.
And the problem is they can't keep track of the story. They've lost all attachments to the original story. It's a completely new story.
And they'll contradict themselves in teachings and everything else all the time because they can't, like you said, they can't keep track of it all in their head at one time.
No, it's like now, if you were to ask somebody what you're saved from, they would say you're saved from an eternity in hell, right?
Yeah.
But if you went back to when Jesus was walking the world, what did they didn't have the concept of an eternal hell. That hadn't even entered their head. Yeah. What was he saving them from? See, it's like, if they didn't have that concept, they weren't thinking that was going to happen. So when he would say, you shall be saved, what would they have understood that to mean? You would be saved from what? And it was him talking about this judgment that was coming on these people. Yeah. Like if you believe what I'm saying to you, you will get out of this town. Yeah. Because there's some really bad shit that's about to happen.
Shit about to go down.
I mean, basically that's what Jesus is saying. Like there's some shit. And if you get out, if you hear what I'm saying, you will be saved. This is why you'll save your children. If you listen, you'll take your children with you too. Yeah. You'll go all together.
Shit's going to get real, for real.
Pretty much. I mean, but yet people think that he's saying you'll be saved from an eternal hell. It just makes you totally miss the understanding of what was being talked about. I mean, there's a really interesting story there.
That's because centuries later, we needed to create something for ourselves and create a narrative for ourselves.
Well, they needed something to control people. Yeah. They needed something. They needed to create a new idol so people would worship it, so they could manipulate the idol so that the people would be manipulated by the idol's words or message. Instead of like, you're not separate from God. You never were. Don't believe it. Don't go to thinking that your knowledge of good and evil will make you closer to God, because it won't. You are already one with the divine, and you don't need to do it that way.
Yeah.
So, and then you can actually live and explore and be curious.
That might be the biggest sin that the church created.
That is the only sin. It's the sin of that separation thought.
They created the separation.
Yeah.
That you've been separate.
That you are not one with God. You are separate and you need to please that God. In order to go back to that God, you got to do something.
They had to create that so they could make the little image of the man in the chasm and God on the other side of the chasm and the cross coming down to be the bridge over.
Oh my God, I saw that image.
We'll make it into a t-shirt. George's mugs will put his mug on.
That's a George's mug special. So. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember that image too. And it's like Jesus, the cross is the way back to God. And it's like, no, the moment that they believed that they were separate was the moment that.
Oh, all right. Here's an idea for all you Christians out there. It's a compass. But it's a compass that points you to heaven. And instead of a little needle, it's a cross.
I mean, that's probably already made, Dan. Seriously.
I can make 1 million of these things.
I mean, that's really, north would probably be a cross. Go north. Or as when I was a kid, one of the songs we listened to by Michael W. Smith was Go West, young man, when the evil go east to go west.
Wasn't that the guy we ran into at McDonald's?
No, that was Stephen Curtis Chapman, who my sister had, she adored him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big Christian pop star.
Yeah.
Just sitting in McDonald's. In Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, he was just
across the street from the area he performed in.
Yeah, that's interesting. He was there and nobody.
I don't think Taylor Swift's going across the Staples Center to get a In-N-Out burger by herself.
I don't know. I know that Billy, who's been on this show, she's been on here, right? On the podcast. She's a flight attendant, and she has had she used to be a server here.
Oh, yeah, with Christina.
Yeah, and Christina Aguilera came in, but she did have to hat, and she had her kind of self tucked down, and she was in, I'm pretty sure Billy, I mean, I remember that story, Billy telling me that story. I wonder if she remembers telling us that.
Yeah.
But it was, that was at Outback.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so they can sneak in, but he was like, I was in the middle of the day. Maybe he just thought, because he was kind of popular at the time. He wasn't as popular as he later would be because Stephen Curtis Chapman later had an incident where one of his sons ran over his adopted daughter,
mm-hmm.
and his daughter was killed.
Mm-hmm.
It was just awful. Like, I couldn't even imagine the gut-wrenching.
Way to bring the mood down, Nicole.
Well, sorry. It was a horrible, horrible event. But I think, did he become more known after that? I can't remember. But I mean, they had to like walk through that. Yeah. He didn't mean to. It was a total accident. She ran out in front of his car. And I can't even imagine that man, that young boy, like growing up to manhood. And I mean, that's just that's so much trauma.
Yeah.
And did it shape them? Did it make them question, like, God could have stopped that? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes people will go more towards that idea of God. But does it morph and it change? I don't know. Do they become softer in their judgments of others, or do they become harsher? I don't know. It could probably go either way.
Yeah, it could. It just kind of depends on how you want to interpret it.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, the Christian God is not real.
He cannot be. He's
not alive. He's dead.
God is dead. Yeah. It's like God is not alive. God is alive. Now, God, the divine, very much cannot die.
God's not dead. He's surely
It's not alive. A man, so he cannot die. They're not. God is not. But the Christian man, God, the Christian man, God, he can die because he's not God.
Yeah, no, it's created.
It's an idol for sure. Yeah.
It's a new golden calf.
It is
that they built.
Kind of like the Trump gold statue that was built. Is that real?
No.
Is it AI?
It was fake. It was a fake story.
Didn't somebody build something gold about him though?
Yeah, sneakers.
Yeah, he did make gold
shilling them. He's a con man.
Oh, he definitely is.
So we're being run by con men, but that's beside the point. So yeah, that's the show in a nutshell. So hope you enjoyed it. Remember, go to dannycan.com, check out all things Dropped Stones and Transform Life. Schedule an appointment with Candy. She got ideas for you. She got thoughts. She got some things she's gonna do. So
I can help you.
Yeah,
set up a consultation. There's a link on the website.
Yep. Go to dannycan.com. Give us 5 stars on any app that you're listening to this. If you're listening via podcast app, we'd appreciate it greatly. It would prove to us that God is dead.
And not just give us 5 stars. Follow. There's a lot more listeners than there are followers. So start following, please. It would really help. It helps us out. We're trying to.
It makes us happy.
Well, and we're putting all this work into it. It gives us feedback. We need feedback, guys. So if you can do that, we would appreciate it. It does help encourage us to keep going or to know what to do, kind of, because, when you're creating things, the feedback helps.
Yep. So if you can do that, that'd be fantastic. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe. Subscribe.
Just 2 middle-aged people like, please.
Subscribe.
Surprise. I don't know why I couldn't say subscribe. I was like, no, I got to say surprise. Is that on SNL?
You're clever that way. So, as always.
Oh, listen to us.
We'll kill all of your faith and beliefs.
Oh, God, no.
Whatever you believe is false. You're worshiping false items.
You guys probably shouldn't listen to us. I don't know. We should probably go back to the original thing we used to say. We're full of shit is what we are.
Go back to church.
Goodbye.
Bye. Mellow.